Around the World Lit Audio 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel García Márquez. Chapter 10. Full Narration Script. Channel Intro. Welcome to Around the World Lit Audio, the greatest novels ever written, from every corner of the world, in English. New chapter every week, free to listen. Chapter Recap. In Chapter 9, Colonel Aureliano Buendía signed the Treaty of Neerlandia and came home having obtained almost nothing for the liberal cause. He went to his workshop and made 25 goldfish. When he had made 25, he melted them down and made them again. Pietro Crespi put his music shop in order and did not come out. Amaranta sewed for 3 days. Arcadio was executed. Ursula looked at her grandchildren and arrived at the thought she had been building toward. We are trapped, all of us, in the same story. Chapter 10. Chapter 10. The 17 Aurelianos arrived. Not all at once. They appeared over several years, in ones and twos, materializing at the Buendía house with the specific quality of people who belong somewhere, and know it even if they have never been there before. They were the sons of Colonel Aureliano Buendía, born of 17 different women in 17 different towns, across the country during the years of the war, each one named Aureliano as though the colonel had wanted to ensure that his name continued regardless of which direction the war took him, each one carrying in their face some version of their father's specific quality of concentrated intensity. Ursula received them, she received them all, gave them food and asked their names, and found their places in the household with the organizational efficiency that had always characterized her approach to the family, which was essentially the approach of a woman who has decided that the family is going to be as large as it is going to be and the correct response is management rather than resistance. She noticed, watching the 17 Aurelianos, that they were all the same. Not physically, they were the sons of 17 different women and they showed it, in the variation of their features, and their coloring and their builds, but in the quality that mattered, in the thing she had been tracking through the generations of the Buendía family. They were identical, the solitude, the intensity, the specific difficulty of connection, the way they moved through the world as though behind glass. Their father's children, her son's children. The pattern continued. Mr. Herbert arrived. He arrived the way that things arrived in Macondo. The novel was always careful about arrivals, about the specific quality that each new person, or invention or plague brought with them, because Macondo was a place that absorbed everything, and was changed by everything, and the quality of what arrived mattered. Mr. Herbert was a North American. He was large and methodical and ate his food with the systematic thoroughness of a man who has come to do something specific and intends to do it. He was evaluating. This was visible in everything he did, in the way he looked at the land, in the questions he asked about the soil, and the rainfall and the growing seasons, in the measurements he took. He had come to look at bananas. Macondo had wild bananas, had always had them, growing with the casual abundance that the Caribbean jungle produces, eaten by the Buendía family and their neighbors as part of the ordinary texture of life, not worth particular attention because they were simply there. Mr. Herbert paid attention to them. He ate one banana. He ate it with a focused attention that was more than eating, that was assessment, evaluation, the specific concentration of a man with a purpose. He produced small, measuring instruments from his bag. He measured the banana. He noted the measurements in a small book. He said nothing. He took more bananas. He measured more bananas. He looked at the plants from which they grew. He looked at the soil. He looked at the rainfall and the drainage, and the slope of the land. Then he left. He came back with a commission. The commission was from the banana company. The name of the company was not given at first. It was simply the company, the way that large forces are often simply the force, without needing a specific name because the name is less important than the fact. The company was interested in Macondo and its surrounding land. The company wanted to grow bananas. The company sent engineers. The engineers arrived with their instruments and their measurements, and their specific quality of people who have come to change something, and are very good at changing things. They surveyed the land. They planned irrigation. They planned roads. They planned housing for the workers who would come to work the banana plantations, housing organized according to the logic of an industrial operation rather than the logic of a town. Macondo watched. The arrival of the engineers was one of those moments in the novel where Garcia Márquez allows the magical realist surface to become slightly more transparent, where you can see through the specific details of Macondo, to the specific details of the actual history, the arrival of the United Fruit Company in Colombia in the late 19th century, the transformation of the banana-growing regions, the particular form of exploitation that dressed itself in the language of progress and development and brought with it everything that those words contained and everything they concealed. The workers came, thousands of them, not from Macondo, not from the surrounding countryside, but from elsewhere, from other parts of Colombia and beyond, attracted by the wages the company paid, which were good wages by the standards of the time, and the standards of the place, though they came with conditions attached that were not wages at all. Macondo changed. It changed in the way that places change when they become part of something larger than themselves, when a town that has been self-contained and self-referential is connected to an economic system that operates according to rules the town did not make and cannot influence. New streets appeared, new neighborhoods appeared, new people appeared, with their own customs and their own languages, and their own ways of being, that were not Macondo's ways. The Buendía family watched. Colonel Aureliano Buendía watched from his workshop, where he continued to make goldfish and melt them down, and make them again. He had opinions about the company, strong opinions, liberal opinions, the opinions of a man who had fought a war about exactly the kind of thing the company represented and had lost the war, but had not changed his mind. He said nothing. He made fish. Ursula watched from the house. She was very old now, older than anyone should reasonably be, though in Macondo the question of reasonable age had always been somewhat flexible. She was still managing, still organizing, still the animating principle of the house. But she could feel the world changing around her, in ways she could not organize against. The company was too large to be managed. The change was too comprehensive to be accommodated through efficiency alone. She said, "Something bad is coming." She said it the way she said everything important, matter-of-factly, without drama, as an observation rather than a prediction. Nobody paid sufficient attention. Among the Aurelianos who had arrived from the war, the 17 sons, the new Aurelianos, one stood out. His name was Aureliano II. He was not the son of the colonel but the grandson, the next generation of Buendías, born to one of the colonel's sons, carrying the name forward in the specific way of the family, which could not seem to stop producing Aurelianos. He had the family's intensity but directed it differently, not toward solitude and not toward war but toward something more like life, toward the specific quality of someone who has inherited the Buendía capacity for extreme experience, and has pointed it at pleasure rather than abstraction. He ate enormously. He threw parties. He loved a woman named Petra Coates, with a passion that was the most straightforwardly human feeling, in the novel to this point, not the distant, conceptual love of men who love ideas of people rather than actual people, not the possessive interference of women who love by preventing, but something warmer and more immediate, the love of a man who has found someone he enjoys and is not ashamed of enjoying them. Petra Coates was not his wife. His wife was Fernanda del Carpio, a woman from the highlands, brought to Macondo from a background of impoverished nobility, that had impressed upon her the importance of appearances in inverse proportion to the actual resources available to maintain them. She was beautiful and cold and performed the rituals of her class with the specific thoroughness of someone for whom the rituals are all that remain of the class itself. She and Aureliano II coexisted. They coexisted in the Buendía house with the specific quality of a marriage that has resolved into parallel lives, Fernanda performing respectability, Aureliano II pursuing everything else, and both of them maintaining the performance of family, with a dedication that was, in its way, its own form of love. The banana company was changing Macondo. The change was not yet catastrophic. That would come, but the direction was visible to anyone who looked at it with clear eyes, and Ursula had clear eyes, and she watched the direction with the specific attention of a woman who has been watching things long enough to know what they look like when they are about to go wrong. The goldfish circled. The trains arrived, bringing more workers, more equipment, more representatives of the company, more evidence that Macondo was no longer what it had been. 100 years, thought Ursula. 100 years of building and it is all going to end badly. She could not have said exactly how she knew. She knew. Chapter Transition. You have reached the end of Chapter 10 of 100 Years of Solitude, by Gabriel García Márquez. In Chapter 11, the banana company completes its transformation of Macondo. The workers organize. The tension builds. And the Buendía family continues its patterns, the names repeating, the qualities repeating, the solitude repeating, as the world outside the house changes into something that the house cannot contain. Chapter 11 is available next week. Subscribe to Around the World Lit Audio so you never miss a chapter. A new chapter arrives every week.